The bell above the diner door jingled merrily. Another day began at Maggie's place. The aroma of coffee and bacon filled the air. It was the smell of hope, a new beginning. Maggie hummed softly as she flipped pancakes on the sizzling griddle. For 30 years, her diner had been her haven, a place of warmth and comfort for her and for anyone who walked through her door. Each day at Maggie's place was a familiar rhythm, the clanging of plates, the sizzle of bacon, the murmur of conversations. Regulars sat in their usual booths, sipping coffee and trading stories. Maggie knew them all by name, their orders memorized, their lives intertwined with hers. Her heart ached with a familiar pang, remembering her Tom. He used to man the grill, flipping burgers with a twinkle in his eye. Now it was just Maggie, her reflection in the glass of the pie case, a constant reminder of the emptiness beside her. But she carried on, her smile a little dimmer, her heart a little heavier, but her spirit unbroken. The morning rush had subsided. Maggie leaned against the counter, catching her breath. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the windows of the diner. Winter was coming, bringing with it a chill that seeped deeper than bone. A shadow fell across the checkered floor. Maggie looked up. A man stood hesitantly at the door. He was thin, gaunt, his clothes hanging loosely on his frail frame. His eyes, though, held a spark, a flicker of hope that mirrored the warmth within the diner. He shuffled inside, his gaze darting around nervously. He looked lost, out of place. Maggie knew that look. It was the look of someone who had known hard times, someone who had felt the sting of hunger and the weight of despair. He reminded her of Tom in those final days, the way his shoulders slumped with fatigue, the way his eyes held a quiet desperation. It stirred something deep within her, a wellspring of compassion she thought had dried up with her tears. He approached the counter cautiously, his hands clasped nervously in front of him. Maggie saw the way his eyes lingered on the pie display, his stomach rumbling softly. He cleared his throat, his voice hoarse, as if unused for days. "Morning, ma'am," he stammered, his eyes downcast. Could I just have a glass of water?" Maggie's heart went out to him. She knew he was hungry, his pride preventing him from asking for more. She couldn't bear to turn him away, not on a day like this, not with the memory of Tom's struggle so fresh in her mind. "Of course, hun," she said, her voice warm and reassuring. "And how about I fix you up a nice hot meal while you're at it? My treat." The man looked up, his eyes wide with surprise. "Oh, no, ma'am, I couldn't possibly," he began, but Maggie cut him off gently. "Nonsense," she said, her tone brooking no argument. "You look like you could use a good meal. Take a seat, make yourself comfortable." He hesitated for a moment longer, then nodded gratefully, sinking onto a stool at the counter. As he did, a worn leather pouch slipped from his pocket and landed on the counter with a soft thud. Maggie bustled around the diner, her heart lighter than it had been in months. She piled his plate high with scrambled eggs, crispy bacon, and fluffy pancakes, her speciality. She poured him a steaming cup of coffee, its aroma mingling with the scent of maple syrup. He ate slowly at first, savoring each bite as if it were his last. Maggie watched him discreetly, a lump forming in her throat. There was a quiet dignity in the way he ate, a sense of gratitude that touched her deeply. As he ate, he spoke, his voice gaining strength with each word. He told her his name was Daniel. He had fallen on hard times, lost his job, his home. He had been wandering for days, unsure of where to turn. Maggie listened patiently, her heart aching for him. She knew what it was like to feel lost, to face uncertainty. She had felt it deeply when Tom passed. In that moment, she saw a reflection of her own pain in Daniel's weary eyes. He finished his meal, a look of contentment washing over his face. He thanked her profusely, his voice thick with emotion. He said it was the best meal he had eaten in a long time. Maggie waved away his gratitude, her own heart full. As Daniel rose to leave, he paused, his hand hovering over the worn leather pouch on the counter. He looked at Maggie, his eyes filled with a strange mixture of emotions, gratitude, hesitation, and something else she couldn't quite place. "Ma'am?" he began, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't have much, but I want to give you something, for your kindness." He opened the pouch carefully, his calloused fingers trembling slightly. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, lay a small, silver locket. It was old, tarnished with age, but beautiful in its simplicity. Maggie gasped. The locket was identical to one she had as a child, a precious heirloom passed down from her grandmother. She had cherished it dearly, but it had been stolen years ago, along with her sense of security and her belief in the goodness of strangers. "This," Daniel's voice wavered. "This was my mother's. It kept her strong during hard times. I know it's not much, but—" He trailed off, his eyes downcast. Maggie reached out, her hand trembling, and took the locket from him. As she did so, a small folded piece of paper fell from the pouch. "What's this?" she asked softly, her eyes welling up. Daniel hesitated, then sighed. It was inside the locket, a message from a long time ago. Maggie unfolded the paper carefully. The ink was faded, the writing elegant and flowing. It was a message, penned decades ago, yet its words resonated with a timeless wisdom. Kindness, like a single ember, can ignite a fire that warms the world. Pass it on. Tears streamed down Maggie's face as she read the words, their simple truth piercing through the years. She looked up at Daniel, her heart overflowing with emotion. "But how?" she stammered, her voice choked with tears. Daniel simply smiled, a sad, knowing smile that spoke volumes. "Some things," he said softly, "are best left unexplained." He turned and walked towards the door, his steps lighter now, his shoulders squared with a newfound purpose. As he reached the door, he paused, glancing back at Maggie, his eyes filled with a quiet gratitude that mirrored her own. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice husky with emotion, "for reminding me of what truly matters." And with that, he was gone, disappearing into the swirling snow, leaving Maggie standing there, the locket clutched tightly in her hand, the note a tangible reminder of his unexpected gift. The bell above the door jingled softly, a sound like a blessing, a promise whispered on the wind. Maggie stood there for a long moment, her heart pounding, her mind racing. The encounter had been so brief, so unexpected, yet it had shaken her to her core. It was more than just a free meal she had given Daniel. It was a lifeline, a beacon of hope in his darkest hour. And he, in turn, had given her something far more valuable, a reminder of the power of kindness, the enduring strength of the human spirit. He had reminded her that even in the depths of despair, even when stripped of everything else, there was still good in the world, still reasons to hope, still reasons to believe. The locket, once a symbol of loss and pain, now represented something entirely different. It was a symbol of connection, of the invisible threads that bind us all. It was a reminder that even the smallest act of kindness can have a profound impact, rippling outwards, touching countless lives in ways we may never fully comprehend. Maggie hung the locket on the wall behind the counter next to a framed picture of Tom. It became a beacon in her diner, a silent testament to the extraordinary power of ordinary kindness. She kept the note tucked inside, a constant source of inspiration. From that day forward, Maggie's place was more than just a diner. It was a haven for lost souls, a place where weary travelers could find solace in a hot meal, no questions asked. Maggie's smile returned, brighter than before, her heart lighter, her spirit renewed. She never forgot Daniel, nor the profound lesson he had taught her. She carried his gift with her always, in the warmth of her smile, in the generosity of her spirit, in the kindness she extended to every soul who crossed her threshold. For Maggie had learned that sometimes the greatest gifts are not the ones we receive, but the ones we give. And sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness can change lives, both the lives we touch and our own.